This is the Bears Barroom Radio Network. The following program is recorded live and intended for all audiences.
Radio is scripted now. We just come up with it. We don't use computers. We don't rehearse. We're going to talk about this next. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Bulls. And then we're going to have Brad Bixon. And then we're going to have all this. No. If you don't know what you're going to talk about in the top of your head before a show, you shouldn't be in the business. I don't know what you got. I feel like Vince Vaughn in a couple's retreat. The Sharks are circling. Old school, baby.
You're listening to the Mike North Advantage, and it begins right now.
That's right. The Mike North Advantage starts right now. I am Aldo Gandia, Mike's wingman, and we're going to have some fun today. Heck, what am I talking about? We have fun every time we do this show. But we're going to get to one of my favorite topics in the whole wide world, and that's the Chicago Bears. And Mike has a very special guest to do that with him. He is a member of the Barroom Network. You know what? Mike should introduce him. Let me introduce Mike. Mike North, how are you, my friend?
Oh, another big day on the Barroom. What can I tell you, Aldo? I'm doing good. Everything's good. Everything's regular, which I understand you weren't for a couple days. We'll get to that afterwards. We'll talk about some things. We'll talk about, are they playing football? Are they not? Are they going to wear a mask? Are they going to stay in one room? Are they going to be in different rooms? Are they going to dress in different stalls or in different rooms? Are they going to have the offense separated from the defense? Are there going to be fans? We'll talk about all that. But you know what? Special guest. And then, after our special guest and I are done interviewing Aldo, we'll have a few questions from the chat room and all that. This guy here, I read his resume. I mean, you know what? Somebody said to me once, you know what your best claim to fame is, Mike? I go, what? Well, you put your foot in the door and you knocked it down. And I look at this guy and I look at some of the stuff and some of the great things he's done on his resume. I mean, the guy was on the USA Today network. That's not easy, folks. But he reported on fitness and outdoor life. Unlike Dr. Phil, who writes a book on dieting, but he's 50 pounds overweight. This guy actually practices what he preaches. The guy's a stud. And on top of that, he's entering his fourth year at the Barroom as the host of Buffone 55, a weekly show previewing the Bears' upcoming opponent. We got something coming on with the Bears' Barroom post-game show. We'll let him announce that, what's going to happen. I worked with his uncle. We were like brothers, really. And, I knew a lot of stuff before anybody else knew a lot of stuff when it came to his Uncle Doug. So we're pleased to have on, and you can check him out, folks. And I'm being serious about this, because this guy's a go-getter at J.D. Buffone. We're pleased to have on John Buffone. What's up, John?
Mike, you really know how to make a guy feel welcome. Thanks for having me on. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we'll talk about a lot of things because, as you know, I think I want to touch on your Uncle Doug first, and then we can move on to the stuff that you're going to be doing, the hijinks and fun and good stuff for the Barroom. But I worked with your uncle for more than a few years. We had a sandwich on the market. We had coffee. We were known as the Wise Guys. But before that, I met him in '92 at the hot dog stand when he had the Doug Buffone Sport magazine. And he came by to see what all the hubbub was about at this hot dog stand about a guy that was going to be working on the new sports station. He was so smart, yet I think it always bothered Doug that he was sort of pigeonholed, because I knew of nobody that worked harder and, knew all sports. But he was pigeonholed more or less into football, and I thought when we got together, that changed for him. But basically, when you talk about a Buffone, the first thing you think about, even with you, is football. It's sort of stereotypical, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're dead on. I think that he carried a chip on his shoulder through absolutely everything he ever did. And I think that was a great motivating factor because, when he played, he had the chip on his shoulder that he wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the biggest. When he got into radio, it's like, well, he's just a big football guy. He's going to go off and just talk about football. He probably didn't do a whole lot of research in this. He's just going to use his bombastic attitude and everything else. I think he used that in business, in his personal life. He used that chip on his shoulder that says, everyone thinks I'm some big goon. I'm going to show you, I'm going to metaphorically smack you in the mouth, sometimes physically smack you in the mouth, but he was out to prove everybody wrong and everything. And but you know what, you were never going to find a more down to earth professional athlete. When he came home, oh my goodness, he was just crazy Uncle Doug who hadn't shot a deer in about 10 years, so he was going to be the butt of his jokes for every one of his brothers and every one of his nephews. So he was a very down to earth, honest guy. And if you didn't know who he was, which most people did, but if you didn't know who he was, you would have had no friggin' clue that he was a professional football player and a great professional football player at that.
Yeah, Doug, in fact, was my wife represented Doug in a couple negotiations. She did very well for Doug, and Doug earned every cent that he did. I know this, that Doug was the regular guy, and he would often come back from vacation and bore me to death about how he sat in the deer stand, and while he was eating a submarine, they're looking for deers, and he's up there eating a submarine, and I guess one of the stories was that the crumbs were falling down below, and there were 2 deer underneath the stand, eating the crumbs of bread while Doug was looking for deer and saying there was nobody around. Just funny stories like that, and you know what? He just came across, I think if you're going to go Joe Street, he was the average Joe Street, you're right, of any professional athlete I've ever met.
Mike, I got to tell you this real quick. This is just the epitome of how it was whenever he got around, because he wasn't cut any slack when he came home. No one cared that he was a professional football player. Nobody cared that he was on Chicago radio. So back in the mid '90s, whenever he was on TV or radio, I'm not sure exactly which show he was doing. They took call-ins, and I'm pretty sure it was the television show he was on at the time. But that's before the internet, Mike. So a lot of people didn't have, outside of Chicago, if you weren't watching that on TV, you didn't have the phone number to call in, because you weren't listening to it on the internet, and you couldn't just Google it to see what the number was. So not everybody outside of the region had that number. Somehow my Uncle Joe got that number to call in. So
I know Uncle Joe, by the way. I met Uncle Joe back in the day.
He and my dad and my Uncle Sammy, they were all at my house. So this was in the mid '90s, so I couldn't have been more than like 6, 7, 8 years old. But they found the number. They said, we're going to call into Doug's show, and we're not going to tell him it's us. So my Uncle Joe calls in. He gets the call screener and says, hey, this is Doug's brother, Joe. Don't tell him it's me. So they pass him on to the show. Doug says, hey, we got, they said his name was Joe from Rockville or something like that. We got Joe from Rockville here. What do you got, Joe? And so my uncle goes, hey, Doug, I hear you're quite the outdoorsman. You live back in Pennsylvania growing up. I heard you haven't shot a deer for a while. And my uncle's kind of confused at this point. He's like, yeah, I do go back there. I haven't really talked about not getting a deer for a while. He's like, it's kind of funny how people know that. And then my Uncle Joe follows up and says, I also heard you fell asleep in the tree stand last year. A couple deer passed right by you. Any truth to that? And by that time, my Uncle Doug caught on. He's like, Joe, what are you doing? How'd you get this number? And this is on live TV. So that shows you the kind of relationship that this family had. They don't care that you're on TV. They don't care that you are a football player. I'm gonna call in and I'm gonna bust you up a little bit. So that personality runs across the board. But and he was just humble about it. He was laughing his ass off. He called him after the show and said, how the hell did you get this number? And he was laughing about it because it was just a practical joke in between brothers. So that kind of shows you what the mentality is in the Buffone household. Yeah,
great family, and Doug was just a great man. And you know what? But you know what? You're following in his footsteps in a lot of ways. I gotta, like I said earlier, getting your foot in the door, taking shortcuts to get to where you got to go. Couple things caught my eye because I admire this. There's no doubt you wrote letters or you called somebody at the USA Today network, or maybe they saw you on video. Tell me how you got and how you got the gig of reporting on fitness and outdoors for the USA Today network? Because that's no chintzy type of situation now.
No, it was, oh man, it was an uphill battle from the very get-go. When I got out of college, I had a broadcasting degree. I was hosting a small show in Kittanning, Pennsylvania, Western PA, about I think a 1,000-watt AM radio station. So it had the range of about a town. And I was doing a sports show there. And I was doing my sports show. And guess who came on every week to talk football? Doug Buffone, after he was done doing his stuff with the Score and he was done doing, hits for NFL films and all that stuff. Doug Buffone, he called me. He's like, before I even started that show, he said, I heard you got a radio show. He's like, how about I come on? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? Like, I didn't even ask him. He volunteered. So he came on every week, showed me the ropes on how to make a radio show interesting, how to keep passion going, how to keep the listeners involved, how to make a real entertaining hour of radio. And he did that for a year. He was on there every week talking NFL football.
Helped you.
Oh my God!
And you kept the tapes and everything else, right?
Absolutely. I can't tell you how much to have that guy come on my show and light up the airwaves and have his personality. And he is a very well-known name that increased the ratings a little bit. People were listening more on the internet. Even, we had listeners in Chicago who were listening in because they knew Doug was going to do a hit on his nephew's radio show. So him being on there was, I can't put a price on that. Nobody else in the world gets that kind of support and, did it without asking for anything in return. Nobody else knew he was really doing it. I don't even know if the people at the Score knew he was doing it. So he would come on and do he's like, I can give you 15 minutes. I said, that's all I need. He'd stay on for 45 because he was having a good time. We were just talking back and forth. So that radio show really helped me transcend. And then I got a newspaper gig covering high school sports, and I moved out to the other side of the state. Then I got into TV. I was a cable TV news reporter for a while, which was way out of my realm, but I wanted to challenge myself a little bit, so I did that. And then eventually this regional Pennsylvania USA Today network gig came open for outdoors and fitness, and I kind of just jumped on it. And they saw my resume as far as radio, TV, and newspaper, and you have the Holy Trinity there, so you kind of throw it in there, and that I was able to get that, and I did that for a few years. And then throughout that whole mess, somehow Aldo Gandia slipped into my DMs and said, hey.
He's always causing problems, that guy. I'm minding my own business. It's enough is enough. Disrupting people's lives,
I'm sitting there. Some guy named Aldo Gandia. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? He's like, any relation to Doug Buffone? I'm like, yeah, what's it to you? He's like, let me
that was very nice. Show. I'm sure Aldo appreciated that.
No, and it was great. No, I did a hit on one of the shows there, and that blossomed into a pretty good friendship and a good working relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Buffone 55, which is honestly, it's just I do that for my uncle because he was one of the most beloved radio voices in Chicago. I want his voice, I want his name to keep going on. So I'll never match even half of his passion or insight on that, but I can at least keep his name alive through that show and bring as much energy as I can, just like he would. And we're doing some interesting stuff at the Barroom. We're going to be expanding a little bit, but everything that I am in this business and everything that I have been in this business is a testament to him because he helped me out of the kindness of his heart. I didn't ask him once because I felt bad. I'm like, oh, can you help me with this? How about this? How about this? He proactively came to me and said, hey, this is what you got to do. Here's what you got to do. Here's the kind of people you got to connect with. Everything that I am in that business is because of him, and I will be forever grateful for him for that.
Yeah, it's the fourth year you're going to be doing Buffone 55, a weekly show previewing the upcoming opponents. So, folks, we encourage you, of course, always to follow us at Bears Barroom and also all the shows, all the podcasts. John's been a great part of the Barroom for a long time. This one here got my eye. I love this gig. I've come up with some wild gigs in the past. But media specialist for the U.S. government caught my eye. Yeah, I mean, you fly around in a drone because I think you would know this. There are people in the U.S. government that need to be a little bit more savvy about the media, but I think the top forms of government do a pretty good job. I mean, as far as handling the press. But let me ask you about this: what happens if politicians call you, congressmen? How am I going to handle this if I get this question on TV? How do you do that, John?
Well, that comes from years of experience in the media. I all of a sudden went to the other end of the microphone. So what happens right now? Most of the time, I'm dealing with the Department of Commerce right now. So anytime that a media outlet would have an interview request, whether it's TV, radio, newspaper, they contact me, and I become the spokesperson for that particular agency. And it was a lot of research. You got to know your stuff. You got to be able to, handle questions like that. And once again, that all comes back to sticking with the media business for so long that they trusted that I knew how to, I knew how to interview worked. I knew how questions were going to be lead up to. I knew how to respond to things because I've been asking those questions for so long. I at least have a pretty good idea on how to answer them. And I know that I don't want to feel like I'm continuing to beat this drum, but I almost left this business a couple years into being into radio. I was making about $150 a week in royalties on my radio show, just rolling pennies, so I had enough money for gas to get to work. And that one big loud voice in Chicago said, "Stick with it, stick with it. You have talent. Stick with it. I don't want to see you get out of this." I was going to leave. I was done. I was going back to school. I was going to be a history teacher. I love history. I was always infatuated with history. I'm like, I don't need this. I'm going to go back to school. And I had that big bellowing voice say, "What the hell are you doing? Keep doing it. Keep going. Keep going. I'll be on the show next week. Let's talk about it." And every week he'd come on my show, he would reinvigorate me to stay in media. And so, like I said, even outside of media, now being with the government gig, that's a testament to him, because I wouldn't have stayed in the media business long enough to get this job if it weren't for him.
Yeah, I mean, former sports anchor, which you were for Blue Ridge News 11 in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, news and sports. Very opinionated guy. You and I have joked in the past a couple of times, about your physique. Okay? At some point this will all fall apart for you. I'm just here to, at an older age. I mean, you're not going to be able to keep up getting in. I think what I really had fun with you with was that hyper chamber, which I called just get in here and freeze to death and pretend you're a man. Something like that. Do you still have that thing, that tube that you get into and revitalize yourself? Do you still have that ridiculous thing that probably cost you half a fortune?
Hey, I'll have you know that I didn't buy that. I was just using it for a story, so I don't want to get it twisted. I'm investing half of my savings on a cryobaric chamber. But I was exploring different ways of body recovery because, Mike, I'm getting old. I'm in my early 30s now, so I got to be able to take care of myself and extend that a little bit. And all of a sudden, I decided to, hey, late 20s, early 30s, that's a good time to become an amateur boxer. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of years.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that because my street fighting record was like 9-14. I usually fought people that thought they could beat my ass, and sometimes they did. And it was usually in bar settings or some baseball or softball or type of game situation. And when I was younger, it counts in. I had a hot last couple fights until I got really my butt kicked in 91 or 92 by somebody, and I decided to retire. But I also did a little boxing in the Army at 155 pounds back in the day. And let me tell you something, folks. There's no tougher sport. And I remember Doug telling me, your uncle, his workout was to do 3-minute rounds of 15 rounds. Like it was an actual fight, and he just would hit the heavy bag for 3 straight minutes. Folks, I would encourage you, try it and see if you could last more than 3 or 4 rounds. 3 minutes of punching, then you sit for a minute. Second round, 3 minutes of punching, then you sit for a minute. You'll be begging for your mother by the 5th round unless you're in shape. Am I right, John?
It is one of the most physically demanding things that you can do. And it's not just cardio, it's strength, it's all of this. You're in constant motion the entire time. Not to mention, in other sports, if you make a mistake, you might lose. In boxing, if you make a mistake, you might get knocked out. So there's always that mental fear of like, I got to keep doing this right, because if I slip up once, someone's going to hit me with a counter and I'm going to sleep. Especially for me, I box heavyweight, so one shot can change everything around. I'm right now I'm sitting at 225 pounds, and my trainer doesn't think I'm going to be able to get down to cruiserweight anytime soon, which is 190. So I'm going to be stuck with the big boys for a while. Oh yeah, I gotta slim all that fat
down. What happened to the road work I've been hearing about for so many years? Let me tell you something. My personal friend of mine is one of the greatest cruiserweights of all time, because he beat up heavyweights for a living, including one of the tops of all time, and that's Evander Holyfield.
Right.
And there is no tougher man as far as heart goes that I've ever seen as far as boxing. And I go back to Ernie Shavers, Ali, all those guys. Joe Frazier had tremendous heart. But I think your successful boxers, even the ones that, like the Gottis of the world, if you don't have the Sugar Ray Leonards, the heart is so undervalued in the great superstar boxers. The will to win is undervalued, whether you're Duran or anybody else. Would you agree?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought up Evander Holyfield, because I think, he is considered one of the greats, and I know that he's always, talked about up in the upper echelon, but I don't think he gets nearly enough credit, because he gets overshadowed by either Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali, rightfully so. Yeah, but look at you can put Evander Holyfield's resume against anyone. Who else would have fought? He fought Lennox Lewis twice. He fought Tyson twice. He fought Riddick Bowe 3 times. He beat Larry Holmes, Ray Mercer, George Foreman. So you look at that. Nobody else really has an incredible resume like that. And I just think that a lot of times he's undervalued because he didn't have the celebrity that a Tyson had, or some of these other big mouths did. Not to take anything away from Tyson, but if you put their resumes up against each other, you're gonna be pretty surprised. And
just for the fact, John, that he beat Tyson's ass after Tyson bit his ear off, he says, "Let's keep fighting." That's
keep
to
going.
me. If you're a boxer, if you're Tyson, after you did that, and you're a street guy like he was, and the other guy goes, "Okay, you bit half my ear off. I'm ready." That has always been undervalued to what it did to Tyson's psyche. Always.
Yeah. You bite someone's ear off.
Huh?
You bite someone's ear off, and they're like, "All right, let's keep going." We're like, "Well, I don't think any punches are going to do the trick here. I just bit the guy's ear off."
Right, exactly. Now let's talk about this. I hear that this is coming up. I'm a big fan of this because I'm going to tell you something. The post-game shows in Chicago are some of the weakest I've ever heard. Okay? Podcasts are a different story. I think that the Barroom has hit pay dirt. You're going to be doing something that I think I'll let you announce it, who you're going to be doing it with, but it's going to be called, I want to announce it, Bear Football, the name of the post-game show. Am I right?
Yeah. This is really, really exciting for a number of reasons, because this is something that we've been, brewing up for a while, and it's going to come to fruition come week 1. But myself, Tyler Ellis, and Aldo are going to be doing Bear Football, which is the post-game show for Bears games, which if you ask me, if you put a Buffone in a post-game show, I can't think of anything that just carries, that I could take more. There's nothing that I could take more pride in, because that's what my uncle was known for. I'm not going to be able to do it as well as he is. I'm going to say that right now, but I'm going to try. I'm going to bring it every time with some reactions, looking over the game when they win, especially when they lose. We're going to be doing a post-game show minutes after the final whistle. We're going to be up online with some video. We're going to be able to throw in some post-game press conferences with Coach Nagy and the rest of the players. We're going to be able to patch that in while we're talking. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think people that already tune into the Barroom are going to love it. I think it's going to bring in a lot of people that maybe haven't heard of the Barroom yet that are going to be listening to it. So it's really, really exciting. It's just post-game reaction when everyone's all lathered up, whether it's good or bad or it's never going to be indifferent. I can tell you that. But it's going to be a lot of passion for if they win, if they lose, if they play poorly, if they escape barely, and they beat a bad team they should have beat by 15. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So you tune in to the Barroom right after a Bears game, and you're gonna hear some good stuff.
I'm going to tell you something that should flatter you, because I've never really given you the long-term listen. I've given you the short-term listen. But I'm going to tell you something. I could already tell about your passion, which carries everybody a long way. But when it comes to your energy and your gift of gab, you remind me of a guy that I heard about back in '92. You really do. You got a lot of quickness. You're quick on the draw. I think you got to be. I don't think you can think, if you're going to start thinking about what you're going to say because of PC purposes or whatever, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. You shoot from the hip, and it's going to be all good. And that's why I'm going to bring on my guy, Aldo Gandia, who's got, and this is going to be like a little mini run for my guy, Buffone. Yeah. And we got some Matt Nagy cuts, I think, Aldo, and we got some questions from not only you, but the chat board, right?
Yes, we do. We do indeed. And I got to tell you, I am so excited about Bear football and teaming up with Tyler and John Buffone. You know, the energy level that John has just displayed here is only yeah, really. But it's only matched by one other guy that I know, and that's Tyler Ellis, his co-host on this show. So, I mean, these guys are going to be able to light up the entire Chicago skyline with the energy level that they're going to bring on these post-game shows. And I'm just going to be there, you know, fielding questions and asking them questions and just having a fun time with these guys. So I'm really looking forward to this post-game show. And as Mike said, I got a couple of sound bites here from Matt Nagy that I wanted John and Mike to react to. The first one is Matt Nagy was asked yesterday on Tuesday of this week. He was asked about the identity of the offense, and this was his response.
On offense, I don't think necessarily last year you could say we had an identity. So what is that? Well, we'll see. You know, we'll see what that is and what we think it is. You all know too that I've told you it can take weeks before you truly know with your players and with scheme and everything. But I think right now I feel pretty good about an identity in training camp. Only time will tell.
This is his third year as a head coach of the Chicago Bears. Do you think they should know the identity by now, guys?
Well, I want to ask John if he could hand me the rope over there. I'm going to put it up on the balcony, and then I'll need a chair. Because, I mean, here is a guy. I mean, any coach, look, you go back to Ditka, you go to Bill Walsh, you go to Joe Gibbs. You knew the identity. You knew the system. You knew what you had to do. It didn't go as planned last year. I think the identity's been for him to pass first and to run second. I think his identity is based on hope that the defense is going to not only be better than it was last year, even though they were ranked 8th or 9th. They weren't as good as the year before, John. But to me, I think it's going to depend on who your quarterback is. And right now, Trubisky, from what I'm understanding, is the odds-on favorite, because I had been calling that since they traded for Foles. I think Foles is the guy that might have to be the savior. Trubisky doesn't get it done. But the psyche of Trubisky is gone if they start Foles, and then Foles in his first and second game has horrible games. You hurt two guys. You rob from Peter to give to Paul. What's your take?
Well, Mike, I'm going to say that Nagy response was the biggest bowl of word soup I've heard in quite some time. He didn't say anything. He didn't say a damn thing.
I'm busy.
Yeah, if you don't know what your identity is. Well, I know what the identity is. It's to go 3 and out and put all the pressure onto the defense. So you look at especially last year. You have an offense that can't really move the ball, that can't even move the chains for that matter. And so you put all this pressure on your defense to keep going out there and keep going out there. And if you have an offense that wants to throw the ball, then don't say you want to run the ball. We heard a lot of times, I'm not an idiot. I know we got to run the ball. Well, you better run the ball then. And you better do it effectively, because all you're doing is you have this high-flying offense that doesn't fly. Then you just have a bunch of incomplete passes or a lot of 3-yard outs or a lot lot of checkdowns, and you're still going 3 and out, and your defense is getting a 2.5-minute rest, and they're going out there and they're getting hurt, and they're dropping like flies, and all of a sudden the defense can't perform well late in the season because 2 or 3 big contributors aren't on the field because your offense can't move the change or at least stay on the field for 5 to 10 minutes. So, or 5 minutes, I should say. So I think you should maybe know the identity in year 3. Maybe they haven't shook up the offense so much that you got to think that you got to redo the identity. There's a quarterback competition, which is, pretty important, but they didn't revamp everything. That they're still trying to find their identity. They are who they are. I'm not trying to steal a quote from Denny Green, but they are who they are right now, and we got to see if it's going to be Mitch who is taking a step forward. And don't get me wrong, I think Bears fans should want Trubisky to be the guy. I'm tired of hearing. I don't want anyone wants to keep hearing could have had Mahomes, could have had Watson. It would be great if Trubisky took a huge step forward and all of a sudden he becomes what they thought he was going to become. However, I hear a lot of, it's going to be Trubisky and then probably Nick Foles in week 4. Well, what does that tell you? That they're not playing very well and they might be 1-3, or they might be 0-4 and then they got to go to Foles. I don't want a quarterback change 4 or 5 weeks into the season. I want a guy that can start on week 1 and maybe push for a playoff spot. I don't want Nick Foles to come in, stink up the place, and then, we got to go back to Mitch. I don't want Mitch to come in, not be able to move the change. Well, we better go with Foles. If there's a quarterback change, that means your team isn't winning. So I want the guy that is picked by Nagy supposedly next week. I want that guy to be the guy who can take them to the playoffs. I don't want a wait and see approach to say, hey, let's see how he does. If not, we can throw Foles out there. Oh, we can always pull Foles back out and throw Trubisky back in there. Then you're looking at a 6-10 season at that point. So they need the guy to step in who's going to be the guy and take them 16 games. I don't like this wait and see approach. And if it's Foles, it's Foles. I don't care if Foles edges him in the competition, then put him out there week 1. Because I'm tired of saying maybe there's next year, because they could both be gone after this year, Mike. Foles could opt out and be gone. Yep. Trubisky's didn't get his 5th-year option renewed. So if they don't have anybody, then they got to draft a guy and start all over.
I was on a podcast last night, and then we'll get the next Nagy cut. I was on a podcast last night with Philly Godfather, so they know Foles very well in Philadelphia. He had a great season, no doubt. They got a statue of him up, at Philadelphia camp. But he did say this, and I've often made this comparison. He's about and I'm not saying he's Glennon. He's just the same size, and he doesn't have the mobility that Trubisky has. And they said at Philly, and I've often told this on Barroom, he had a great offensive line. If he's not protected, Foles will be useless with the Bears. He's got to be protected. He's got to have a decent line. And right now, that I think, Aldo, you'd agree, is in flux as far as they got a new coach. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean Castillo's going to make their feet faster. That doesn't mean he's going to make them stronger. He may have different schemes. But if they don't protect the quarterback, either guy is probably going to end up failing.
You ain't kidding. I'm from the old school. Jim Finks built the 85 Bears, and he did it by starting with offensive linemen and defensive linemen. He knew that you win the game at the line of scrimmage. And there's people in the chat room like Jedi 4049 who are saying the same exact thing. And Jedi 4049, he looks like he's 15 years old, so I don't think he was around during the Jim Finks.
Well, he's got the name Jedi.
Yeah, right. So, so he's definitely a millennial.
Although he might be 50 and have an outfit and walk around it. I have no idea.
But he knows how to build a team, and Ryan Pace, I'm afraid, just doesn't. But they've invested a lot in Leno. They've invested a lot in Massey. They've got the draft picks for the interior of the line. And so the reason they brought in Castillo is because they're thinking to themselves, oh, my gosh, if we paid these guys all of this money and we made these draft picks on all of these guys and we're wrong, we are screwed. And so Castillo hopefully is going to remedy that situation.
I never blamed the offensive line coach for what I was watching. I blamed the athletes who got these jobs in training camp, and I'm saying to myself, Come on. I mean, there were some issues, and I know Kyle Long's gone now, but he had injuries. I mean, things hit on him at the wrong time. But, man, I just did not see. I don't know if bringing in a new coach is going to conquer everything. Hopefully it will. That's all I can tell you.
I got one more soundbite here, and I'm afraid to play it because my blood pressure went up so high when John responded to it. So this is Matt Nagy talking about the run game, because we know what a disaster the run game was last year. Because of the offensive line. And Mike was not impressed with David Montgomery. And Jedi 4049 agrees with you, Mike. He was not impressed with David Montgomery either. He thinks he's kind of an average back. And we know that Matt Nagy did not do a good job coordinating that run game. This is Matt Nagy talking about any improvements that we can expect in the run game.
I do feel really good. I think that's one of the things that in training camp here we've been able to focus on, and the stuff that we have that we like, that we do really well, we stick to that. We add some things here or there, and I think that Coach Castillo and Donnie and the O-line has accepted that, and it feels good. Now, I don't know, again, just like a lot of things until we get that first game, but right now I just appreciate their effort and their willingness to try to really get after it in practice.
All right, I took my blood pressure medication. You guys take it away.
The running game was an afterthought to him. I didn't like it when they traded Jordan Howard, and people saying, well, he's not doing that good in Philly. No, but he was doing good for us. Yeah. And you wanted to pick another guy and bring him in who's a rookie. And believe me when I tell you this, it's very, very reasonable to say that Montgomery can be a bust. And if he's not, tell me what he's going to be. Because he's not as good as the guy we had. And you know what? He misses blitz coverage sometimes on blocks. I like the kid in college. That does not translate to the pros. But also, John, I think we got to look at the offensive line once again. I mean, you know what? It's hard. There were a lot of times the holes weren't there, but there were a lot of times that he hesitated and didn't hit the holes.
Well, Mike, if you think the running game was an afterthought last year, what now when Montgomery might miss games 1 or 2 and they didn't bring anybody in? So you're gonna give Cordero Patterson 10, 15 carries and then Tariq Cohen 10 carries? No, this is a good excuse to just keep going with those swing passes, just keep going with those gadget plays and throw the ball 45, 50 times in the game. So unless they're gonna bring it now, we're alive now, and who knows what's gonna happen in the next couple of days if Fournette comes in or they kick the tires on Devontae Freeman. But Aldo, you were saying for the last 3-4 months, the Bears are going to bring in a veteran to camp. They're going to bring in a veteran running back to camp. They haven't done it yet. And if they haven't done it, after Montgomery's injury, they either feel like Montgomery's going to recover a lot quicker and be ready for week 1 or 2, or the other possibility is, you know what? We'll just do a lot of screenplays. We'll just do a lot of swing passes. We got Cohen. We got Cordero Patterson. I can't even say his name. Cordero Patterson. We have Ryan Nall. So you know what? I feel good with what we have. We'll go with that. And then whenever we're getting stuffed at the line, we'll throw it 45 times a game, and we'll put it all on Mitch Trubisky's arm or Nick Foles' arm and see what happens. So we saw them try to run the ball a few times last year. The line couldn't do it, and then the running game was 100% abandoned.
Can I ask you guys a question? I'll ask Geldo and you this question real quick. When Ryan Pace goes to sleep at night, was his dream to reunite the Jacksonville Jaguar offensive backfield?
With all the success that it shared?
They were 20th in turnovers offensively. They were horrid. Interceptions, fumbles. Absolutely. So now I'm just waiting for Tony Baselli to come out of retirement so we can emulate the worst team in football, for God's sake, practically.
I'd take Tony Baselli.
Even at this current age.
Fine. Whatever. Throw him in. If he can play, he can play.
You might be able to play better than Charles Leno, according to some people in the chat room. Hey, last question here for John, and then we'll let him go. There's a lot of talk in the chat room about the depth at the running back position, but also the cornerback position. Are you concerned at all, especially now with Artie Burns, the number the former number 1 draft pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was released and the Bears signed him as a free agent. Now that he's injured and going to miss a portion of the season, are you concerned that Jalen Johnson may not be ready, even though he's a second-round draft pick, and that Kevin Tolliver, the other corner, might not be ready for prime time or to be a starter? Where's your concern level at the corner position?
I would say moderate or mild. I know that all the reports are saying that Jalen Johnson is ready. He's ready to step in. He's ready to be an NFL cornerback, which is fine. He's not stepping in to be the number 1 corner. Apparently, Kyle Fuller's having a hell of a camp. He's flashing plays all over the place. So if it's Fuller and Johnson on the corner on the sides, I get it. Kevin Tolliver and hell, even Sharon McManus makes some plays sometimes. But if you look at the team, they have this year. At least they should have this year the benefit of a very good pass rush with Quinn and Matt coming off the corner. So Leonard Floyd didn't really get it done last year on the pass rush. Yeah, I get it. He can drop back in coverage, and that has value and everything. But if Quinn and Matt can really pinch in the quarterback, then Jalen Johnson doesn't have to cover a guy for 5, 6, 7 seconds. It's the same with Fuller or any of the other cornerbacks in there. They're not going to have to make coverage sacks because the 2 guys on the outside are going to be able to do it themselves. So as long as that pass rush performs the way it's supposed to, that takes a lot of pressure off of the cornerbacks.
There you go.
Well, I'll tell you what. You know what, though, before I let him go, they got rid of every time I say I like a Polish football player, they get rid of him or don't draft him, like Janikowski or Kwiatkowski. I think they're going to miss him. I loved him. I'm sorry. I don't know the memo I missed where he couldn't play, but we're going to miss him. I always thought he had a nose. I think they value athleticism sometimes over the nose to the football. Yeah. And I just saw that. And now I believe he's gone. Am I not right, Aldo?
I'm sorry. I missed which player we were referring to.
Kwiatkowski.
Oh, he is gone.
Yeah, he's with the Raiders.
He was not signed as a free agent. And so John is absolutely right. He's with the Raiders.
We're going to miss him, I think. Don't you think, John?
Yeah, I mean there could be some depth issues on the inside linebacker. Where they brought guys in. Didn't they bring in Alec Ogletree a couple of days ago for a tryout? So obviously, if they're doing that, then maybe there is at least a moderate concern about the depth on the inside. So that's going to be interesting because Danny Trevathan, he's had a couple of years where he can go the distance, but he's always been a guy that is susceptible to having a long-term injury. And if behind him, maybe you don't have a guy like Kwiatkowski that can really pull. Now I'm not going to, for anybody that goes into the archives, I have bashed Kwiatkowski before last year. I was all over him because I didn't think that he could cover a grandma, but he really flashed last year. He really came into his own last year, and I thought he played really well. So losing that is going to be a big hit. And I think did they not also lose Kevin Pierre-Louis in free agency?
Correct.
So
we'll see what happens, man.
There's going to be some depth issue.
Yeah, they may. We love you, buddy. And folks, look forward to not only Buffone 55, but also with Tyler Ellis, Aldo Gandia, John Buffone. And by the way, folks, believe me, he's got the passion. He's got the heart. It's going to be a great show. I'll be listening. Bear Football. That's the name of the show. John, good luck, buddy.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me on. I hope to do it again soon.
All right, pal. That is a John Buffone, JT Buffone, on your Twitter handle. And Aldo, the hardest working man in the Bears barroom, the godfather of the barroom. You got to be getting psyched too, because I think there is room for a post-game show that basically tells the truth. That's just me.
Yes, that's the design of the show is, John and Tyler are so energetic and are going to shoot from the hip. They're not going to couch whatever they think. They're going to tell it like it is. And, no offense to our friends in the professional media, but Mike, nobody knows better than you how sometimes the corporate bigwigs don't want you to say what is really there in front of everybody's eyes, and so it's gonna be totally uncensored. And not that these guys are gonna be throwing around F-bombs and stuff like that. That's not their style of broadcasting, but they're going to tell it like it is. They're going to share their opinion, and they know quite a bit about football, but it's going to be most of all about the passion that you just heard over the last several minutes with John Buffone and Tyler Ellis. Great stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be on right after the Bear game, so just remember, folks, on the problem. So, Aldo, what do we got, my friend? Where are we going first today, my friend?
Well, I love to play this music, and here you go.
Oh, my God, no. Why didn't you tell us you were going to make big? Well, I'm being under pressure from Aldo. Mike, please. You need to give us a winner. Please, dear Lord, I haven't gambled since last year when I didn't gamble, even though if I would have gambled, I would have had to. We've joked many times he owns 3 or 4 buildings in Chicago, but
right.
Basically I don't know if he even would want to own 3, 4 buildings in Chicago right now, but we'll find out because you couldn't really own these buildings if you remember the game Monopoly. There's no difference between my picks and having 4 hotels. Right on. I don't care if you're talking Baltic Avenue. I don't care if you're talking Mediterranean. Hell, I don't care if you own a railroad property. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we have.
Mike, before you get to your picks, I mean, we've got so many new listeners. I want to tell people that Mike North, besides being one of the Chicago sports radio pioneers, I mean, legendary. There's a movie being made.
I got a coonskin cap like Davy Crockett.
That's right. Our true pioneer.
I got the musket. I got the outfit, the whole thing.
That's right. I mean, Mike is credited with building Chicago sports radio. And then not only is his fame in that area, but his fame is also as a handicapper. Very few people in the nation had the 1-loss record that Mike has had over the last couple of seasons betting on NFL games. And he is going to give you for absolute free, a pick or 2 right now. Take it away, Mike.
All right, here's what I'm going to tell everybody first. You got to be able to take a break every so often. Now, going into last night, all right, I had lost 1 game the night before.
Mm-hmm.
Then I lost yesterday twice. And I said, should I bet the Twins and the under? And I didn't. But that's okay. I said, you know what? I'm 0-3. I'm going to stop tonight because it's about business management.
Right.
But if I was going to go, I would bet the Twins and the under. So what happens? The Twins and the under. So I say to myself, I used to say, you're a dumbass, you're an idiot, you lose a game or you lose 2 games or you lose 3 games, you get scared or you don't want to go. No. There is confidence involved, but you don't have to bet money to win. My confidence is back whether I picked up the phone or not because I picked 2 winners. So tonight, I feel good. Now, if I don't bet the game and I don't even make a pick on it, where if I would have won one of the games yesterday, I would have probably bet these, then you know what? Shame on me. But what I got in my head is I didn't bet the game, but I picked the 2 winners.
There you go.
So going into today, I'm feeling good. Does that make sense to you, Mr. Gandhi?
One of the things I've learned about betting, and as loyal listeners of this show know that I am not a betting expert. I like to bet on sports because I know sports, but I'm not a aficionado of the gambling game like you are. And one of the things that you've taught me is to manage the betting. Manage it. Don't go out there and just say, well, I'm going to bet on the Cubs because I love the Cubs. I'm going to bet on the White Sox because I'm a Chicago sports fan. No. Manage it. Bet on things that your gut tells you and your research tells you this is a good bet. Just don't go around laying money for the sake of just betting.
Absolutely. And, the other night, I'll be the first to say, my loss was the Twins. I'm winning 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
The White Sox, I got news for everybody. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I've seen them all. From Jim Fry to Don Zimmer, from Terry Bevington to Ozzie Guillen, from Tony La Russa to Tom Trebelhorn, Lee Elian, the College of Coaches, Leo DeRocher, and Gene Lamont. I've seen them all. I've seen them all. Renteria has done an unbelievable job with this baseball team. The only handcuff he has is Grandel's contract because they want to prove to be right. I mean, they batted him second yesterday, and they sat the All-Star McCann after he had 2 hits the night before.
Jeez.
So he can get away with that now. But they lost the game because they didn't play their best players. Or they put a guy sitting 228 batting second with all the talent on this team. I don't get that. If you're going to play him, take the pressure off him because he feels the contract. Bat him 6th or 7th. You're batting him second. You're batting him third. I mean, I'm trying to figure that whole thing out. So, you know what I mean, Aldo? McCann gets sad yesterday after he catches Giolito, a no-hitter, and they got this other stuff. So it's going to be an amazing dynamic. You know what I mean?
McCann might be the most underappreciated athlete in Chicago sports. I don't get it.
Well, I did tell everybody, including you last year.
Yep.
I was on the air when they picked up Grandel. Me and Aldo were on the air, live. I'll never forget it. There's 3 things I'll never forget, okay? 3 things in my psyche, all right? And in sports. The block trade, of course, forever. We'll never forget that. But I'll never forget the Grandel pickup when he had a catcher that's on the come, which means, folks, old school guys know this, he's going to get better. McCann, the big Irishman. And we'll see what happens. But we digress, don't we? Can we the musicians probably left.
Yeah, no.
Right? They were playing the music?
All right, guys, coffee break is over. Come on back.
Well, they're sleeping because we went into our oratorium. All right, let me just check something out. I want to check the time of this game.
You check the time.
Ladies and gentlemen.
And I just...
Miami?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, while you're checking the time, I just wanted to remark that I am so glad to hear you give some credit to Renteria, the White Sox manager, because all I see on social media is criticism of this guy. And yes, he has not been perfect, but you know what? I don't think any manager would have been perfect with this team because there are so many unknowns with this roster. And like Mike said, there might be some political pressure about playing certain guys at certain positions in the lineup and so forth. So I'm so glad that you gave a shout out to Mr. Renteria.
Well, first of all, my brother, we'll get to the pick, folks. Don't worry. Just stick around. My brother, Danny, is a Cub fan. He thinks Renteria should have stayed with the Cubs.
Yeah.
They did win with Madden, but Renteria's the guy that put the players in a position, even though he got his ass kicked. And you know what? Then he comes to the south side. Not many managers have managed both sides of town. And he spends his life getting his ass kicked. And I don't want him to be Doug Collins. I don't want him to be the guy that can't take him from point B to point A. This team, in my opinion, I thought was going to lose less than 32 games. And don't tell me you're an idiot, because I put my money down at least. I also said the Cubs were going to win more than 32 games. So I'm going to win one of them, because they will. because you know what? Here's what I do know. Kansas City, Detroit, and Pittsburgh aren't going anywhere.
There you go.
So let's be honest about it. We're playing in some patsies, and they're beating the patsies. Both teams. That's a sign of a good team. But I'm telling you right now, that Renteria has to be getting consideration number 1 for manager of the year in this shortened season, don't you think?
I think so, but I'll tell you something. There are some White Sox fans and Cubs fans in the chat room who just disagree. They are not Renteria fans. Heart 4803, who is
we'll get to him. Wait, we'll get to him.
Yeah, we gotta get some gambling.
We better get the gambling. I don't even know what time this is. Let me check real quick.
Okay,
let me check this real quick.
Absolutely.
NBA betting odds.
NBA
I
betting.
just want to make sure. Sometimes the game's. One day I woke up, the game, it was 10:30 in the morning. It's ridiculous, okay? I want to just make sure. And with tonight's game is the Miami Heat.
That's at 5:30.
Milwaukee.
5:30 Central on ESPN.
Right.
Game 2, right? The Heat won the first one.
Well, no, did they play yet? I don't think they played yet. Find out for
the
me,
Heat.
because you're the one that asked.
Yeah, I got it here. The Heat won 115-104 in Game 1.
That was the Giannis. Yeah. Okay. Here's what I got. Miami is +5 against Milwaukee.
Okay.
Milwaukee is -5. I don't care what happened in the last game. I don't care if they played the last game. This is what I got for today.
Mm-hmm.
I got Milwaukee -5. Okay. And then I got the under 220.5. So I got Milwaukee, and I have the under. Aldo, back to you.
Nice. Well done. Hey, I got to ask you something. This game tonight, at 5:30 Central, the Heat at Bucks, it says here.
No, right.
But there really is no home field advantage here. They're playing in a bubble with virtual fans.
They're playing NBA playoff games at 4:30.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Or 5:30.
Yeah.
They were playing the first round of the playoffs. It was like Christmas Day for me. They had 4 games on. I had to interrupt watching Judge Judy. You know what I mean?
She missed
My God,
you, too.
Judge Judy, and I had to miss a couple of my other programs, which I don't want to bring up. But come on, I'm trying to concentrate on world events, and I turn the TV on, and lo and behold, you know, there's basketball players on at noon.
That is amazing.
Right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know
Now,
what?
tell me what these people on the chat, but tell me what all my dear friends, all my friends who since 2008 have been blaming or have been saying they're going to be in the playoffs, because I know some of these guys, you could tell them that the Sox have only 2 starting pitchers, and they'll argue with you, and they'll say, no, Kopech's great, and then you'll find out he's only pitched 1 game, but everybody thinks he's going to be great, and based on what? Besides, you know, so bring them on. What questions they got?
Kevin is just befuddled. That's his word. He's befuddled by Renteria's lineups, though. So, but I think,
agree.
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. But I think you made a good point. You know, there could be some pressure by the people upstairs. Let's get this guy going, and so put him in the second slot of the lineup.
But what have his lineups been doing, though? They've been killing pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
They've been destroying pitchers. They didn't get it done last night. It's easy for me to pick out Grandel, but I'm not a second guesser. I'm a first guesser with him. But are really people going to question his lineups when his offense is one of the best, if not the best right now in baseball?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I look at is there's so much young talent here, and for a manager to figure out what is the best way to utilize these guys, you can't do that in week 1, week 2, week 3 of the season. It could be that he is finally going to find that magic lineup in game 59. And guess what? This team is still playing great. You could probably put these names in a hat, and they're still going to go out there and hit.
That's why you're free of criticism if you're Rick Renteria. Because, like I said, I mean, most people had the White Sox finish in 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
And they still might. So let's not get too full of ourselves, but I'm excited about this team. I'm anxious to see what the attendance is going to be once this pandemic stuff or whatever is going on is over with and everybody can come back out again.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see how many season ticket holders, new ones, are going to come from a very exciting baseball team and want to make, if you're on the north or northwest suburbs, you know, from Arlington, that 2-hour drive to the ballpark to see a very good team. It's going to be interesting because the attendance based on the talent should go up, but there's a lot of issues now that weren't issues before. So we'll see what happens. And I know it's got to be, I know this for a fact. I know the man personally. Don't second guess me on this because I'll shoot him with true serum. But he already said it. He's unhappy. There's no turnstiles. He's unhappy.
Yep, he is.
He's upset.
And your take on the Chicago Cubs and how they've been playing recently?
I think they're where they should have been, but I think Ross made a mistake a couple times. I think Kimbrel is another. When I say political, I say contracts. Mm-hmm. If Kimbrel was a $1 million pitcher, he's gone. He's gone already. Everybody knows that. I mean, you just can't march him out there. I don't care what kind of lead you have. And you're trying to develop a changeup at this late stage because your other pitch isn't as good or isn't as good as it used to be. And I just think that if they keep – the bullpen's going to sink the team if anything does. But they're going to the playoffs. They're going to the playoffs. I think the White Sox are the team that we still got to say, keep going after it, guys. Nothing's guaranteed. It's a close race in the in the Central, but hopefully a third place team gets a wild card. So we'll see what happens.
Hey, Bears Arms 44 just joined us in the chat room about 10 minutes ago, and then he just posted right now. Hey, are you guys going to do any Bears talk today? And I told him, wow, you missed the first half hour. But
I just love it. I just love the same cast of characters who love the Cutler deal, love the Grandel deal, that now love the Bulls deal.
Well, I'm going to do this.
I just love it. There's 5 guys. No, I added Carmen. I think Carmen last week on the Odds Couple on the great ESPN 1000, the greatest wagering show on terrestrial radio, outside of the Barroom, of course, which is on the net. He was one of those guys. I go, you're throwing cold dice. You're throwing cold dice. Step away from the table.
Uh-huh.
So, I just think that some guys, I could just tell by the columnists. Foles has great days. Yeah, okay, has a great day. Then you read the column from 2 weeks ago, the guy's saying, I'm a big Foles fan, basically. Mm. Trubisky's got the upper hand from what I've heard of late, Aldo. That's all I'm going to say.
Q from Cincy just joined us, and of course he's probably...
What do you want? He's nothing but trouble. Him and his Cincinnati Redlegs.
He was so hopeful that the Reds were going to win that series.
That guy's been haunting me since Fox with his Cincinnati. I'm sick of him. When did they ever overachieve? They've never overachieved. Since what, 1990?
That's hilarious.
What's he want?
He just says, I'm sorry he's late, that he loves you. But I'm going to do this for Bears.
So are your Reds. So are your Reds.
I'm going to do this for
and
Bears
your
Arms.
Bengals. Oh, I can't wait for the Bengals. I'm a big Bengal guy now, Joe Burrow.
There you go. Oh, my gosh. Somebody in our fantasy football draft drafted Joe Burrow over Aaron Rodgers in his draft. In fact, it's Ron.
I
would
too, but I
really?
don't know. What did he draft? At what pick?
That was in the 8th round. Quarterbacks are usually picked late in fantasy football, which is
Aaron Rodgers didn't go to the 8th round.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird? That's the one thing I don't like about fantasy football.
Guys? I want to gamble with them. Who are these guys?
Ron.
Who are these guys? I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan, but 8th round. What is this like? Some special school? Where they go? Are they? Seriously? Am I going to have people knocking on my door going, "We're good"?
That's right. That's the one thing I hate about fantasy football. That's the one thing I hate about fantasy football is that the scoring should be weighted more for quarterbacks to be selected in round 1, just like they do in the NFL draft. But instead, the way the scoring system works is you see people taking running backs, like 8 picks in a row, running backs in the first round. And that's just not, to me, it should be different. But anyway, I promised Bears Arm 44 that I would ask you one Chicago Bears question just for him.
Ask me whatever you want. You're the man. You're the boss. If you say I need you till noon, I'm here. I don't care.
I love it.
Don't worry about it.
This is Matt Nagy being reminded that he said months ago that he wanted Mitchell Trubisky to master coverages, to learn how to read defenses, and he was asked how that is going.
I think first of all, master's a strong word. That takes a little while to get to, but I think that he's doing a really good. He's definitely 100% growing and understanding coverages. And I think that's all you can ask for. Master, there's only a few of those right now when you really think about it. But he is doing everything that we've asked in regards to progression and understanding where defenses are at. And I think that's what's pretty cool to see.
Mike, I'm an expert at reading too much into what people say. To me, that says that he's still not happy with Trubisky's progress. What do you think?
Well, they shouldn't be surprised. Mm-hmm. He only played 13 games in college. Watson played 40. All of a sudden, you bring him in, and all of a sudden now you want him to be able to read defenses like a guy that played, 25, 30 more games than you, and actually won a national championship. And Trubisky didn't start till his last year. And let me just say this for everybody, too. Because if Mahomes, let's just say this, Aldo, if Mahomes and Watson, mm-hmm. who I wanted Watson, but I find myself sticking up for Trubisky now. Mm-hmm. By the way, two of the quarterbacks Nagy was talking about that have mastered how to read defenses were the two that they passed on. Okay? Mahomes and Watson. All right? Okay? But let me tell you this. Let me ask everybody this question. Uh-huh. All the stubborn people in the chat room, not all, some. If Mahomes and Watson hadn't become what they've become, mm-hmm. if they were just above average or average, would we be crying about Trubisky as much when you look at his stats? No. And here's the other mistake they made by moving up ahead of him. Mm-hmm. They should have let the chips fall where they may. And if it ended up that they had to take Trubisky anyway, fine. But to move up for him, and I think because of what has happened with the other two guys that Nagy was talking about, or nobody from the press was smart enough to say, well, the two guys you passed on to move up on with Trubisky, I'm really on a roll right now, are the guys, okay, mm-hmm. that know how to read the defenses, period.
I would agree with that 100%. And my concern with Ryan Pace, and I'm still holding out hope that Mitchell Trubisky is going to turn things around. I know how much you like the guy.
Of course you are. You don't want him to bomb.
Yeah, I'm a huge Bears fan. I don't.
You know what happens if he bombs? I don't care if we have Nick Foles or not. We got to bring in another quarterback within the next year or two and start all over again.
Well, you just led me to a promo because Danny Shinman, who was one of our scouts here at the Barroom, one of the things that he's doing,
scout.
Yeah, this guy really puts the work in. He's studying tape and so forth. We are doing a series of videotapes on potential prospects that the Chicago Bears might be interested in the upcoming draft. And he has started with quarterbacks. And so watch for this on our YouTube channel, Danny Shinman evaluating the quarterback class for the upcoming draft, because it could happen. We could be in the market for another quarterback, just like you and John Buffone were talking about earlier in the show.
Yeah, I think that here we go again. I mean, hopefully not. That's what I'm hoping for. Mitch is still the favorite to get in there. I'm hoping that I think what's got to happen, too, is I've said this before, 17 of the 22 Bears last year had down years. So it's not just Mitch's fault, including, I didn't count among the 17, those were starters. Mm-hmm. I didn't count Nagy, mm-hmm. and I didn't count, his bad year that he had. Somehow they've made Mitch the only scapegoat. I mean, and you're not going to bench everybody else. I mean, Eddie Jackson had a down year. I'm sorry. You're going to bench him? No. Everybody had a down year for the most part. Right. It wasn't just the quarterback, but of course the quarterback's got to take the brunt, but the head coach had a bad year. They didn't even have quarterbacks competing. Mm-hmm. To have no competition in camp for Mitch Trubisky was trying to just say, we're smarter than everybody else.
All right.
And I acknowledge that was a mistake from day one. I would have been, if I knew where Nagy lives, I would have knocked on his door. And as soon as he opened it, I would have said, read this. And say, you have to play your starters in preseason. Just read that. Read that 5 times.
Yep.
And then I'll leave.
Yep.
Read it aloud to me. You have to play your players in preseason. Even you cannot anoint starters off of picks or reputation.
Yep. I'm with you there. And I also would have told them, hey, take a look at this book. It's all about how to have an effective running game in the NFL.
Oh my God! But he didn't care. You don't. If you were a Super Bowl contender like they were last year, my argument was you would never trade a veteran like Jordan Howard. Never.
That's right.
Or a rookie running back.
Right.
I mean, that is a question mark. And now he might miss anyway. I mean, that was a mistake. And you know what? Everybody's on the Tariq Cohen's game, like John said, with the swing passes, the screens. They're not afraid of him running up the middle.
Nope.
They're not.
That's
so,
right.
you know, that was just a huge mistake. And so was, and you know what? The one thing they've done is bring in another quarterback. But, man, if they don't have a line, I heard last night from more than one person on this other podcast I was a guest on. My God, they were telling me, if you don't have a line for Foles, you're in trouble. Why? You know, I don't want to relive Mike Glennon, and I'm not saying he's going to be that, but my God, I mean, you know, that was a disaster. And the Bears went after this guy, Aldo, like he actually won or got Jacksonville in the playoffs. Not that he might be the worst free agent pickup they ever had.
Right. All right. I'm with you. Hey, a final question for you. I want you to put your gambling hat back on. I'm looking at odds.
Don't forget, I got Milwaukee in the under.
That's right, Milwaukee and the under. 2 picks for you for tonight's action, and that game starts at 5:30 Central. So get your bets in.
Right.
Now, 8.5 wins is what oddshark.com is saying for the Chicago Bears. The over is minus 160. The under is plus 130. What do you think? I just found the $100 bill on the sidewalk here. Should I put it on the under or the over? 8.5 wins for a 2020 win total on the Bears.
Well, it's been 8, and I like them at 8. But when pressed, I've been asked, what would you do? Because I've been appearing on shows in Vegas, Atlanta, last night, Philadelphia, Cleveland. So I've been telling people, and I know it went up, I've been saying 9. 9. Now, I don't think that'll be enough to get them in the playoffs, but I just think the one thing that they did the year before last that it's going to be hard to duplicate ever again was the amount of turnovers they had.
Yeah,
amount of turnovers they had.
Right.
They set up on a short field. I mean, you know, they didn't have a lot of 80-yard drives to begin with because of turnovers, and that didn't happen last year. So they need that to happen this year for them to win 9. But hopefully Robert Quinn, like we talked about Quinn and other people on the defense, will help bolster that too. Because, you know, the one thing that did disturb me about the defense was last game drives by the opponent. They always move the football.
Yep.
And hopefully that'll be corrected.
Boy, oh boy. That's Mike North, ladies and gentlemen. He gives you not only great storytelling, but he also gives you great betting tips. Mike, another great show, and thanks to John Buffone. And remember the new show, Bear Football post-game show, and Buffone 55, his midweek show where he previews the upcoming opponent. Mike, say goodbye to your friends.
So long, Aldo. So long, everybody.
All right.